data and statistical literacy for policy action. This cafe is going to be a little longer than usual, at an hour and a half, in order to accommodate 6 excellent speakers from a wide range of backgrounds. And we've divided this into 2 parts. Part 1 will look at the importance of data and statistical literacy, moderated by my colleague Afsana Yazdani. The second part will look at approaches and initiatives to enhance data and statistical literacy in our region, moderated by Shugrita Saral. So since we do have a lot to get through, I'll hand over with no further ado to Afsana, who will introduce part 1.
Thank you very much, Petra, for welcoming and opening remarks. Before starting with presentations, let me just give a few housekeeping notes. Here you can see the MS Teams toolbar. There are icons on it where you can turn on and off your camera and microphone, and access to the meeting chat and raise your hands. To avoid background noise, please make sure that you make your microphone muted, and whenever you're not speaking, make sure that your microphone is muted. Otherwise, my colleagues will mute your microphone from our side. You could use the chat box to post your questions and comments, and we invite you to monitor the chat box and use it actively. We record the meeting, and the video of the meeting will be shared on the Asia Pacific Stats Café webpage. Here you can see the link to the Stats Café. And we also invite you to complete a short evaluation survey at the end of this meeting. Okay, as Petra already mentioned, our Stats Café today has 2 parts. The first part is about to raise awareness on data and statistical literacy and its importance in enhancing the effective use of official statistics for policy making. And in second part, we will see some of the approaches and initiatives to enhance data and statistical literacy in Asia and Pacific. And then we will have time for Q&A and discussion. Sorry. Okay. We have got, let me go back so we can see the speakers here. We have got an excellent panel of speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Walter Radermacher, who will set the scene and briefly explains what is literacy and why it is important and what are the challenges to using official statistics. And so Dr. Walter Radermacher has a brilliant history of working in official statistics, both at national and international level. He worked at the German Federal Statistical Office for 30 years and ultimately as its president, and was Director General of Eurostat and Chief Statistician of European Union for 8 years. Currently, he is a researcher at the Department of Statistical Science in Sapienza University of Rome and the president of the Federation of European National Statistical Societies. Thank you so much, Walter, to accept our invite. And now the floor is yours. Please take the control.
Thank you very much, Asani. And well, from Germany, it's still good morning, good afternoon to Asia. It's really a pleasure for me to go through with you through a couple of points which are important to see what literacy actually means in. Let me see what literacy means when we are talking about literacy in statistics for the public discourse. Now, I have structured my presentation or my introduction in the following way, that I will explain a little bit about what is official statistics, and then the question is, what is official statistics' role in the public discourse? And last but not least, we will then focus on data and statistical literacy in this regard. I am using 3 types of theoretical concepts and frameworks to give orientation. For the first question, what is official statistics? My personal view is that statistics and official statistics is a public infrastructure. It's a factory, and this factory is producing products, information products. And as this view of a kind of industry and products is very close to total quality management, I'm using W.E. Deming's concept and theory for TQM. The second part is, what is official statistics' role in the public discourse? And here I'm using convention theory as it was developed in particular by the French colleagues Alain de Rozier and others in France. And the third one is I'm using the framework for data literacy, which is currently being used in many aspects, which was developed by my German colleague Katharina Schüler. I will come back later to it. Now, public or official statistics, public statistics is a little bit wider than official statistics, can be defined in terms of 4 questions, which are important for the quality of the informational products. Namely, what is the statistical product and the portfolio of products? How are these products produced? Who is producing these products? And last but not least, for which purpose, for whom and for what are those informations produced? And only if we look at all the 4, then we will have a broad enough definition of quality, as it is enshrined in the European Statistics Code of Practice or the UN Fundamental Principles. Now, teaching statistics is very often seen as a very straight line of applied mathematics. Doing statistics, on the contrary, looks extremely different from this kind of straight mathematical theory. So in practice, statistics means the reduction of complexity from raw data via basic statistics, national accounts, indicators, then producing knowledge and decision. So step by step, we are reducing complexity, variation, so that at the end we come to a relatively small number of indicators which are then usable in the context of decision making. So we have a first step which is from data to facts, and the second from facts to policy. And I am focusing on the first part, which is from data to facts. Now, the statistical community is discussing since a while that training and education in statistics must be modernized. For example, here, this report from our colleagues in the US, they come to the conclusion that we must effect the change now by reimagining our educational programs, rethinking faculty hiring and promotion, accelerating the cultural change that is required in the context of new data and new information needs. The World Economic Forum in Davos this year has made this statement: the current statistics curriculum needs to be updated to catch up with advances in computing. However, the main priority should be to bring practical applications to the forefront. People tasked with developing data science courses should therefore not only have statistical training, but also have experience in analyzing data with the objective of solving real-world problems in responsible and sustainable ways. So it's not pure theory. It's let's say the core of official statistics lies in the application. And the framework that I have already mentioned is this framework, Future Skills, a framework for data literacy. And it includes all stages of the process of creation value from data, as I have shown in the previous slide. And which is very important, it's not only technical skills and knowledge, it's about knowledge, skills, abilities, values, and ethics, all along these value chain from data to knowledge. So you see here, which is not, let's say, extremely well readable, the cycle of producing knowledge from data, and I will come back to this framework in a later moment. So now the problem is a little bit, the actual situation is that we very often are looking for a kind of merger between data sciences and official statistics. My view is that there is a challenge and an opportunity in this at the same moment of time. The problem that I perceive is that data sciences are very often seen as a kind of individual capability of producing facts from data individually. So it's like individual traffic on the left side of my slide. Whereas in official statistics, we are talking about standardized infrastructures like railways, which guarantee that we can compare results from this year with results from last year, inter-regional and country comparisons and so forth. And both sides have their pros and cons. The individual statistical analysis, which is a bit the how to say, the paradigm of data sciences, is flexible in design. Each individual researcher has a responsibility for quality and sovereignty, and the relevance is immediately given because what I research is obviously very close to my own information need. And then step by step, I acquire also competence and experiences by doing this. The contra is that if we do this, then we have a very large heterogeneity of solutions. Costs are relatively high. The risk of inequality in societies will raise due to digital and social gaps. And comparability, and this is the, let's say, the most important caveat, is the comparability and consistency with other analysis is not guaranteed. On the other side, if we look at the standardized statistical analysis, as PRO, we have more or less in a kind of mirror homogeneity through standards. We have comparability because we are doing this in an industrialized way. We can have the most efficient and sustainable manner of production. We can follow quality standards. And for the users, there is a relatively low level of statistical literacy required, which is important to guarantee equality in societies. The contra is, of course, that industrialized production leaves no room for customization, or little room for customization and individual needs. Everything is fixed for a while, and last, the technocratic power of those who are producing is limiting transparency and participation. Now, in public statistics, if we first look at the side of professionals, what is a good mix of topics, skills, and knowledge? And here I believe that we should have a middle way between too much specialization and too much generalization. And this middle way is difficult to find. However, I think the most important element is that professional statisticians understand the system, the factory, the DNA of official statistics before going into specialization and very, let's say, specialized themes and subjects of statistical production. They should understand the entire system. And from this viewpoint, I believe that professional statisticians should know the essentials in the design and development of statistics, which is history of official statistics. Where are the boundaries, the scope? They should know about conventions and standards for methods, products, and program. They should understand the process of product planning and decision making, classifications and nomenclatures in international cooperation, how they are set as international standards. They should have a good understanding of ethics, statistical data protection, and so forth, and how important it is to cooperate and have partnership with others in a statistical system. Then comes the middle part, which is normally the one where the focus of statistical training lies on. This is the techniques, methods, algorithms, and tools. So obviously essential elements and practices in survey statistics, data science, and artificial intelligence. But what is also important, the application of the essential models in official statistics, estimation, imputation, and the youngest baby, maybe geographical information systems. They should understand the entire business architecture of the factory. And last but not least, a kind of minimum understanding of methods, theories, and standards of national accounts. Last part is then on interaction, communication of user interaction and communication. This starts with information quality. What is information quality, and how can we verify and certify quality? Do we have different quality profiles of products? What means branding and labeling? And then in practical terms, the theory of indicators and communication of indicators. So this is more or less a very broad view of literacy for professionals. In the European statistical system, we have a couple of years ago started to, let's say, incorporate this broad view in a European Master in Official Statistics, which is a label awarded by the Statistical Committee. 18 countries, 32 programs of universities in 18 countries and statistical offices. And it's a kind of application of existing master programs with, on top, these elements which I have introduced for students who want then to work in official statistics. Now, bridging the gap between producers and users is, of course, at the forefront of literacy. And here you can see two examples how from a, let's say, modern communication viewpoint, statistical information is structured and presented in such a way that even not very much, let's say, professional users can understand the inflation by a personal inflation calculator, and a price kaleidoscope where you can immediately understand how the basket of goods in the price index is composed and how the weights in this basket of goods are, let's say, attributed to different commodities like transport, recreation, education, and so forth. Just two examples from the world of official statistics now. Now, literacy is an issue which has attracted a lot of attention in the last 1, 2, 3 years, in particular in combination with the obvious gaps in literacy in the COVID-19 pandemic. So last year in 2020, in this context, many initiatives have been started. I just mentioned here the website of the Federation of European National Statistical Societies. In Germany, there is a data literacy charter, which has also the support of many politicians. In Switzerland, we have a data literacy charter, and in Paris 21, there is also a lot of activities ongoing right now. For the user side of statistics, I think it is not necessary and not helpful really to assume that users should be trained in, let's say, higher mathematics and data sciences. They only need to know the basics which allows them to assess the quality of the statistical product. And they need to know about the production process, a sufficient number of, let's say, components which allow that they use and assess the quality and make it usable for their own information needs. So in a value chain, whatever kind of product is here in the focus, also an information product, it's not necessary to have the skills and ability of the upstream process steps in detail. It's sufficient to be able to assess and use the delivered product and its quality. Now, for the price index, which I have used as an example already earlier, it's important that you understand the descriptive statistics which are behind. How are the commodities selected? How are the weights composed, and so forth? And this is really then much more important than really to have a perfect understanding of the mathematics of this index. In this sense, I think it could be helpful to involve citizens more in the production and use of statistics, so that they can make their practical experience in handling, working with data and so forth. Not the theory, but really the practical elements. Now, my last slide is on the standard. Currently, the International Standards Association has accepted a project which is running from today, August 2021, to December 2025. And in this time span, the task is to develop an international standard for data and statistical literacy. And we will bring all these elements that I have explained into the standard, and the standard, of course, will be developed in close connection with the international representations of official statistics. So, for example, the UN Statistical Commission. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter, for a very informative presentation and walking us through the different aspects of data literacy. Since we are behind the time, let me move straight to our next speaker. Colleagues, if you have any questions or comments for Walter, please put it in the chat. And one thing that from Secretariat, there is some technical issue. We have very limited access to the chat. So if we do not react on your questions or comments, please accept our apologies. Our next speaker is Mr. Tieke Gujultama. Tieke is the head of the Statistical Modernization and Management Unit of UNECE that supports the work of the high-level group for the modernization of official statistics, which includes communication of statistics. Before joining UNECE in 2010, he worked at ECLAC, the UN Population Division, Eurostat, and various statistical offices, universities, and research institutes in the area of statistics, demographic modeling, and forecasting. Thank you so much, Tieke, for accepting our invite, and floor is yours. Please take the control.
Yeah, unmute, and I managed to unmute. Sorry about that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I will continue, build a bit further on what Walter presented. It's very much in line with his conclusions, but we take a bit a step back and have an even broader perspective. Yeah, so first I'm now for UNECE, and UNECE is actually Europe, but which includes the Caucasus, Central Asia, so that we have in common with ESCAP. We have a joint area, mainly the former Soviet Union, but it also includes North America. Now in statistics, we are governed by the Conference of European Statisticians, and there we have even a broader membership. For example, many South American countries, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, they are member, but also Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, South Africa. So in statistics, our program is even governed and decided by a wider area of countries. This is mainly to do with the history because the conference predates the UN. So let me go to the next slide. So within the HLDMOS, so the high level group for the modernization of official statistics, as you mentioned in my introduction, was set up by the Conference of the European Statisticians. So, and its activities are demand driven and guided by the strategic vision and being overseen by chief statisticians of the HLDMOS. These are like 13, the flags are in the slides, there are about 13 chief statisticians. And so at the highest level, they are engaged to determine the vision and the mission of the HLDMOS. So that means also that there is a buy-in and a support from the highest level. So this is also important for what we're discussing here, statistical literacy and communication of statistics in general, because there is also an overall realization of the chief statisticians about the importance of communication of statistics and the importance of statistical literacy for NSOs, and especially the changing role of statistical organizations in modern times. So the chief statisticians are very much aware of the importance of statistical literacy and the communication of official statistics. As I try to explain in my presentation, like all our communication, all our training, also what Walter said internally, all the knowledge that is needed by the internal staff, everything is related to statistical literacy. So, but it's important to know that at the highest level, there is even a strong support for the and a realization of the importance. So this is very briefly the structure. We have workshops, so for example, on data collection, but also on dissemination and communication of statistics, where also statistical literacy every time appears as sessions and as topics, and various other groups and projects. Each year we have 2 projects. One group will start in 2022, and it's maybe nice to mention, building up of linking it back to Walter's presentation, that we will set up the 4th group will be on applying data science and new methods. We're now currently trying to set it up, and it will start probably in 2022. So you can see it's really aligned with other international developments. So with respect to communication, we have various activities. So in 2018-2019, we had a Strategic Communication Framework, which I will briefly present here. We don't have much time, so you really have to go to the documentation to get the details. We also have the Capability and Communication Group. So their communication was added recently, of like 3 years ago, showing the importance that was given. Before it was more HR related, so training of staff and how to manage staff. And we have, as I mentioned, the Dissemination and Communication Workshop, which will actually is in 2 weeks. So if you still want to join, at the end of the slides, you have the link where you can register, where you can see the pages of the workshop and you can register. So these are some of the publications we have. Clicking my slides, don't move here. So sorry, yeah, a very recent one is.
Do you want me to help?
No, it works. Yeah,
right.
It was just I switched between right-clicking and the arrow. So the Strategic Communication Framework, I will briefly show it afterwards. It was a result of the 2-year project. In the 2 years, there was output. It was combined into one publication. In the past, we had the Making Data Meaningful series. The last one, and the most recent one, is still already 7-8 years old, but it's still relevant. The others one are maybe slightly outdated because, yeah, the techniques change very rapidly of making statistics show nice, etc. So, but they're all also related to statistical literacy. So they're all writing stories about numbers, presenting statistics, communication with the media. So everything is actually related to statistical literacy. And then we have some getting the facts right about what do you have to share, what information do you have to share with the information for people to understand your data and to know what are the caveats in the data you're presenting. And then we also have on the modernization of the value of official statistics, and also on modernization of statistical legislation, which is also all related, because if you don't have your legislation in place as a statistical office, you might not have the position that you can share and counterattack false information. So now the Strategic Communication Framework. So the Strategic Communication Framework, is the result of an HLD MOS project in 2018 and 19, as I said. It addresses the various aspects of communication in statistical organizations and the strategic role of it. So it's about internal communication, employee engagement. So your employees are the ambassadors of your organization, and also of, by default, then also of official statistics. In the previous presentation that was referred to, very important. But it's also about external communication, of course, with stakeholders. And this not only includes the providers of data, but it also includes the policymakers, but of course also the public. The public in general, which is very important as a controlling factor if the governments are not following up properly and try to trick things or provide false information. So that was also presented in the previous presentation. So the publication addresses things like branding, and branding, of course, is related to the value proposition. So the value of official statistics, the skill sets needed, evaluating the communication and its impact, but also addresses organizational culture, roles in the communication, and provides various tools such as a maturity model, as well as addressing crisis and issue management. And now the publication predates the COVID. It was just finished before the COVID started, the project. So it doesn't have that much on crisis management, but we have added case studies and further material on the website of the Strategic Communication Framework publication. So there we especially specify what it is, and the task team under the Capability and Communication Group is also currently working further out what it means, especially the combination between crisis communication and the value of official statistics, and how to counter false information, especially for social media, that has been very apparent with the COVID situation. So the modernization committee, so they continue to work on it. So it's not a finished product and that's it. We continue updating it on a regular basis if there is a need. So the next slide. Okay, so this shows very briefly the many factors that are involved in communication. So it's a lot of it's social media, website management, content creation, is stakeholder engagement, staff engagement, a lot more. Now back to the Strategic Communication Framework, and especially the objectives. Statistical literacy is not a narrow definition. We don't want to see it as a narrow definition as only training of staff and training of users. It's much broader. So it's about branding. It's the value of statistics, showing what is reliable data and what not, and why is statistical data reliable. It's stakeholder engagement. It's the users of data, policymakers, that they correctly interpret the data, the general public, that they know where to find the data and what is reliable data and how to interpret it. It's the objective of the strategic communication for statistical organization. It's all about informing, understanding, changing attitudes, and altering behavior. So it's much broader. For example, branding is about the value of statistics. It's about making users aware of the quality and the independence of official statistics. I mentioned that's very important, so that they can distinguish between good information and bad information, or false or fake information, whatever we call it these days. Statistical literacy is also about dissemination and communication. It's educating opinion leaders, decision makers. It's supporting evidence-based policy making. It's education, is the education community, of course. It's respondents within the organization, the staff. It's providing metadata. The data is properly interpreted, explaining it. There are all things that are part of strategic communication. It's also correcting wrong interpretations or misuse of data. It's even included in the fundamental principles of official statistics, the letter. So it's a whole set. So it's statistical literacy is not just training in statistics and what the meaning of statistics is also providing it in a way that is better understood, providing it in an easy way, explaining, correcting, and setting up a good rapport with your data provider so that you get good data and that they know what you're using it for, so that they are more motivated to provide data, so that the quality enhances, etc., etc. Then the second publication that I already referred to is the Guide to Statistical Literacy. As I said, it's slightly older, and it provides an overall. Well, it also has a broad perspective. So it's the ability to read and communicate the meaning of data. It's the different users groups there are. So there are different needs for each group. There are different strategies needed for each group. But also within each group, of course, there is a variety. Not everybody, not the public, the general public doesn't exist. The policymaker doesn't exist. So it's about educating the opinion leaders. It's about policymakers and evidence-based policy. The education curriculum, of course, is very relevant to start that the population from primary, secondary, and tertiary has already good knowledge of statistics and understanding what is official statistics and what are the fundamental principles underlying it. And of course, also the respondents, as you mentioned. What I was missing in the publication is a little bit because it predates the huge popularity of social media, especially the mis and disinformation and fake news and correcting it. That is a bit missing for the publication. So in the next update, we will have to add it. But again, it's a broad perspective, and it's the fourth of 4 publications, but also the previous publications are all related to making data meaningful, so make data understandable. So then in short, as a conclusion, how much time do I have? I have 1 more minute or less. So this is the last slide. So statistical literacy, it's not statistical literacy and strategic communication. It's statistical literacy is strategic communication. Everything in the strategic communication framework builds and helps to build statistical literacy, helps to understand the data. So statistical literacy has many aspects, and it's not just training and statistics, it's way more. There are various stakeholders, data users groups, tailored and levels, including staff of NSOs, as I mentioned. The engagement and leadership of top management is crucial, as we see within the HLD MOS. It's the top leaders that also support it. And the overall framework of mutual strengthening activities and integrated approaches is needed. So it's not a one thing, it is the whole set makes that you have a good statistical literacy in the country. It's about communicating the value proposition, especially now with the COVID, we have seen the importance of it. So the improving statistical literacy is intertwined in the strategic communication framework. So all the elements of a strategic communication framework ultimately lead to an increase of statistical literacy. So that was the final slide. So here are the links you can follow up on if you want to have further information, or if you want to join, for example, the Dissemination and Communication workshop that is coming up in less than 2 weeks. So thanks. Hope it was not too fast. 10 minutes is very short.
Thank you so much, Dirk, for an overview of the UNEC work on the literacy and communication of official statistics, and also insights into the statistical literacy, which, as you say, is the strategic communication, not and. So I quickly hand over to my colleague Sharita for the second part. And again, I encourage everyone to put your comments and questions in the chat box. Sorry, Sharita, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Oksana, and a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening, colleagues. We move now into part 2 of the Stats Café, and I would like to begin by thanking Walter and TAK for their very informative presentations, where they highlighted the different dimensions of statistical literacy, and they explained to us that this is really about a range of things, from knowledge, skills, the ability to work with data, understanding the ethics and the values. It's about the formats in which data is made available, and so on and so forth. So it's just multifaceted. Now, given the complexity of the modern data ecosystem, where data is being generated all the time, and data is being used all the time in different ways by so many different actors, statistical literacy, in a way, is becoming more of a life skill. And this is required at all levels, from the education curriculum to professional environments, in public policy making, as well as in the daily lives of citizens in general. And this literacy is not just about being able to identify data and information which is reliable and trustworthy, but it is also the ability to actually use this data to make informed choices and to make decisions, be it at the public policy level or even at personal and private level. So as Walter and TK also emphasized, statistical literacy needs to be tailored for different stakeholders depending on their differing needs. So the question is, how do we operationalize data and statistical literacy for different groups of users? And this is the question that our next four speakers will address by sharing with us various approaches and initiatives that they have been engaged in to enhance data and statistical literacy among different groups of users at the national and sub-regional levels, from students to policymakers, journalists, civil society, as well as citizens in general. So let me now invite our next speaker, Ms. Gayani Bambaranda. Gayani is a statistician at the Department of Census and Statistics, or DCS, of Sri Lanka. Gayani is currently working at the Research and Special Studies Division of DCS and is mainly engaged in improving the use of official statistics for evidence-based decision-making. Today, Gayani is going to share with us some of the strategies being undertaken by DCS to enhance statistical literacy in Sri Lanka and the related challenges. So, Gayani, thank you for joining us for this session today, and the floor is yours. Just before you begin, Gayani, I think TK, you will need to take the control, give the control back to Oksana, and we will need to have Gayani's slides up, please.
I have taken the control.
Okay.
But I do not see Gayani's slides yet, Oksana. All right, thank you. Gayani, the floor is yours, please.
Okay. And thank you for your introduction, Sharita. Ayubowan and greetings from Sri Lanka to all distinguished guests and participants. It's my great pleasure to address you all in the 48th session of the Asia Pacific Stat Café series. I am going to talk about how Department of Census and Statistics is involving in enhancing statistical literacy in Sri Lanka as a NSO and strategies used to enhance statistical literacy in school children and challenges faced on it.
You can right-click, Gayani.
Okay.
Right-click your mouse. And if you need my help, I can do it for you.
It's not working.
All right, I take back the control. Just let me know when you want to move to next slide.
Okay.
All right.
May I take? Okay.
Okay.
Can I control it now?
Just let me know. I will move to next slide for you.
Okay.
Okay.
This is my outline. I will discuss why DCS is involving in enhancing statistical literacy in general public through school children, and statistical literacy in official statistics, strategies used and proposed by DCS to improve statistical literacy, and finally challenges. The second one, please. The Department of Census and Statistics is the government agency which is responsible for collecting, compiling, analyzing, and disseminating numbers about socio-economic sector in Sri Lanka. There are two fundamental requirements that DCS need to fulfill when achieving its organizational goals. First one is to increase the usage of DCS numbers, or simply to increase the usage of official statistics. The second one is to increase the response rate of census and surveys. It is important that the information provided by the DCS is used correctly. However, lack of statistical knowledge and availability of comprehensive official statistical publications, mainly in English medium, are the main challenges encountered by the general public when they are using and interpreting official statistics effectively. Statistical literacy in official statistics means the ability to understand metadata, ability to put those statistics into context, and ability to define data concepts and terms. These all three criteria support to improve the public understanding of numbers and figures and explain how they can be applied to everyday life to get benefit. Next slide, please. Yes, as I explained earlier, to have an understanding of any economy, general public needs a certain extent of statistical literacy. For example, to understand general statistical terms such as inflation, unemployment, GDP, etc. However, due to complexity in the field of statistics, the basic concepts should be presented in a manner to reach all age groups. Therefore, DCS is currently involving in enhancing statistical literacy program in 3 segments. Therefore, this is the segmental approach that DCS has used to reach out to a wider audience. The basic segment is school children, and the intermediate segment is university students, and final segment is general public. Today, my main focus is to explain how DCS is involving enhancing statistical literacy among school children. Previous slide. When lack of statistical literacy in the community poses an external constraint, dissemination of only limited number of publication in mother language, that is Sinhala or Tamil media, is an internal constraint. Therefore, now DCS try to move beyond just producing statistics, but doing set programs for enhancing statistical literacy of all segments and disseminating data in a user-friendly manner by implementing internal and external strategies. The next one. And DCS planning more emphasize on implementing school level strategy because students are the future citizens of the nation. As you know, a passing message through students are faster, less expensive, and also good coverage, and it's long-term investment for the country. If students learn the importance of data and how and when to apply data, after they become adults, they will use better data for relevant decision making. And also, this will reinforce the evidence-based decision making when students become future men and women who are running the economy in the country. Students will be doctors, engineers, bankers, or simply future policymakers. If they learn the importance of providing data now, we can expect more timely, accurate, and better response to DCS census and surveys in the future as well. Following other strategies that DCS currently use to improve statistical literacy among school children. The first one is raising awareness. DCS has taken steps to improve statistical literacy among school children and teachers through statistical awareness programs. In 2015, DCS has arranged district-wise school children awareness program to celebrate the World Statistics Day, after which training division of the DCS has been conducting awareness programs annually. However, due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, these programs has been withheld for 2 years now. The second one is provide statistical trainings. The training division of the DCS conducts statistical training workshops, information seminars to facilitate better understanding of statistical concepts, data collection processes, and data applications for students and teachers. These training programs and seminars are arranged as in-house training programs in DCS and also workshops run by DCS officials in schools. The third one is approaching teachers with the cooperation of National Institute of Education. The National Institute of Education, which is responsible for designing and development of curricula for general and teacher trainings. DCS conducts seminars and workshops for tertiary level subject coordinators and curriculum committee of the National Institute of Education. And also, DCS staff have been engaging in writing panel of the advanced level economic syllabus since 2017. However, present primary and secondary level school curriculum touches simple, basic statistical calculation. No proper teaching guide has been included in the current syllabus to understand commonly used official statistics. In order to fulfill this knowledge gap in the secondary level school students, DCS proposed a new module to be added to the syllabus of civic education in government school in 2020. Next slide, please. Yes, this is the module proposed for second level students. The main objective of the chapters are to foster the acquisition and distribution of knowledge, skills, and effective attributes concerning the national statistical system. Official statistics and give an official statistics and to give an understanding as to why they should learn it. At the beginning of each module, it will be continuously emphasized. Official statistics are the statistics published by the government or other public bodies such as international organizations as a public good. Each module will have space to develop further. In order to teach this module well, DCS proposed a module for teacher curricula as well. The main 4 areas in teacher curriculum module is as follows. First one is data awareness that describe that include what are the official statistic data sources, mode of data collections, mandate for data collection. Second one is statistical concepts. That area include basic forms of statistical representations, different types of proportions, more complex statistical concept. The third one is to analyze, interpret, and evaluate statistical information, that is, organizing data, construct and display graphs and tables, and work with different representation of data, including spatial data and data visualization tools. The fourth one is to communicate statistical information with understanding. According to the 2012 Census Population and Housing findings, under 18 population in Sri Lanka was around 6,700,000. Sri Lanka population was around 6,700,000, and out of this, 4,700,000 were school-age children, that is 5 to 18 years old. And school census conducted by the Ministry of Education in 2018 reported that around 4,200,000 were studying in government school in Sri Lanka. If the above proposal could be implemented, DCS is expected to reach out at least 90% of the school-age population. Next slide, please. Even though this program has been introduced in 2020, DCS wouldn't be able to implement it successfully because of the several reasons. The main reason is the COVID pandemic. Because many government organizations, especially schools and teacher training institutions in Sri Lanka, are not functioning properly for almost 18 months. Therefore, DCS wouldn't be able to implement these programs in a proper channel. The second challenge is that DCS faced inadequate human resources. That is, in order to cater the SDG monitoring indicators in this pandemic situation, DCS staff are working hard and working on tight schedule. Furthermore, with the upcoming Census of Population and Housing 2022, there is a huge need of extra human resources. So these challenges would lead to delay this achievement. However, enhancing statistical literacy is an ongoing activity. New strategies on different aspects are required for sustainability. COVID-19 situation gave a chance to do creating our strategies again. During this COVID-19 pandemic, majority of teachers and students use multiple modes of e-learning and teaching methods. Therefore, now DCS has planned to enhance statistical literacy among children through e-platform.
Could you kindly wrap up, please?
Yeah, sure. For example, by posting short video about census and upcoming surveys and DCS regional activities, and DCS going to upload in YouTube, DCS YouTube channel, and conducting series of 1-hour session awareness program for pre-selected school. And also DCS has taken steps to redesign the website to include dashboard and student data portal, and also ready to upload 1 minute of videos about the indicators which are compiled by DCS. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gayani, for sharing with us this very systematic approach being undertaken by DCS to enhance statistical literacy through the school and university curriculum. And Gayani also actually pointed out to us that the objective of DCS's statistical literacy program is not just to increase the use of official statistics, but also to indirectly increase the response rate for official data collection exercises. So thank you once again for those insights. And let me invite our next speaker, Dr. Josephina Omera. Josie is the head of agency and the executive director at the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute. She is the member of the advisory group of the Global Network of Institutions for Statistical Training, or the GIST, as well as the network of training institutions in Asia and the Pacific organized by UNCAP. and of the subgroup on gender statistics training in the Asia Pacific region, co-chaired by UNCAP and UN Women. She has served as faculty member at the UP School of Statistics, Gilliman, and continues to teach some courses. Josie will be talking to us about initiatives being undertaken by her institute to enhance statistical literacy among policymakers in particular. So thank you, Josie, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharita, and a pleasant day to everyone, and greetings from the Philippines. So for this afternoon, I'm going to talk about enhancing statistical literacy among policymakers in the Philippines. So why is data and statistical literacy important for policymakers in the Philippines? So in the Philippines, the provision of accurate and authoritative statistical information is very important for policymakers since it provides a basis for decisions to be made on public policy. And our policymakers, especially our economic planners, know that analyzing and interpreting data effectively and accurately ensure that they form actual evidence. And when there is evidence, they can come up with programs and policies that will help improve the quality of lives of the Filipino people. So during this time of pandemic, we have actually what we call an interagency task force for the management of emerging infectious diseases. And it is comprised of heads of national government agencies, and they rely so much on statistics before coming up with resolutions regarding health and safety protocols, vaccination programs, opening of businesses, and so on. So I believe that statistical literacy is really very important to Filipino policymakers so that they can communicate the statistical information to their constituents. And also, it allows them to target beneficiaries, especially the poor and the marginalized. And I will explain this fully as we go to a particular law in the country. And they get to identify existing economic, social, or environmental issues that need to be addressed. And they can also help identify needs, set goals, and monitor progress. Now, what are the challenges for policymakers to use official statistics effectively in the Philippines? First, some official statistics in the Philippines are not yet produced regularly. So for example, the labor force statistics is only being conducted quarterly. But because of the pandemic, the policymakers would like to monitor unemployment. So they requested our National Statistics Office, which is the Philippine Statistics Authority, to do the labor force survey on a monthly basis. And then there's also slow changeover of the base years for indicators in the Philippine system of national accounts. Some of our indicators still have a base year of 2012, but others have been already updated to 2018. We also have limited official statistics on the sub-national level. So especially if the survey is done only on a representative sample, then what we have only are national estimates. So we have enacted a law, and that will be shown later, so that the sub-national level can also produce more official statistics. And then we also lack disaggregation of official statistics. If you recall, for SDG, it requires disaggregation by income class, gender, ethnicity, geographic location, disability status, migration status, and other relevant dimensions. But in the Philippines, the most commonly used disaggregation is by sex and location. We also lack official statistics on structural changes in the economy, and we cannot use official statistics for targeting beneficiaries due to confidentiality issues. And that's why, again, I will be discussing a law that was enacted to address these concerns. Now, what are some of the efforts in the Philippines targeted to enhance data and statistical literacy among policy makers? So actually, in 2013, the Philippines government enacted a legislation. And this legislation actually merged 4 existing data-producing statistical agencies into one comprehensive Philippine Statistics Authority. And we all know that our National Statistics Office is the producer of official statistics related to countries' economic, social, demographic, and condition of the people, and they are the ones reviewing and approving the sample survey methodologies of other agencies. So no agency can do the survey without their approval and review. Now, the other agency, so there are actually only two statistical agencies in our country. The second one is the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute, and this is the research and training arm of the Philippine Statistical System, and it has the mandate to provide high-quality statistical research and training to the Philippine Statistical System. And when I talk about the Philippine Statistical System, this is from the local government units up to the national government agencies. In this particular law, there was also establishment of interagency statistical committees by the PSA board for the purpose of coordinating and resolving agency and sectoral concerns on statistical matters. So these several interagency committees cover almost all sectors, okay, that the government should provide service to the country. So we have an interagency committee on SDGs, on price statistics, population and housing, and the purpose of which is that if there are any concerns regarding data collection or data that needs to be given to the Filipinos, then they're already addressed in the different interagency committees. Now, there was also a resolution approved by the PSA board for government agencies to have at least 2 statistical positions in their plantilla, and they need to be capacitated in statistics by the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute. Okay, so that the reports to be produced by the different agencies will be standardized. Now, we have a Republic Act number 11315, which we call the Community-Based Monitoring System. And what is the purpose of this? So that the policy makers will be able to target their beneficiaries. So this is actually a census of households undertaken by the LGUs with the participation of the community using accelerated poverty profiling system in data collection, processing, mapping, and analysis of data every 3 years. And the National Statistics Office, PSA, is the lead agency in collaboration with our Department of Interior, Local and Government and the Department of Information and Communications Technology. And the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute has the function to provide the capacity building in data collection, processing, and analysis to all local government units and prioritizing the 4th, 5th, 6th level cities and municipalities. Now, what are some of the efforts in the Philippines targeted to enhance data and statistical literacy among policy makers? As I have mentioned, the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute has the mandate to provide capability building both for research and training to all government agencies from the subnational to the national, okay? But aside from that, we also have efforts like providing the subnational level, which are the local government units, an SDG training, okay? And this was done since 2019 up to the present. And another program that we have gone through is the Operationalizing CD 4.0 in the Philippines. And this is capacity development to strengthen subnational gender statistics for community-based SDGs monitoring. And it is a partnership between Paris 21, PSRTI, and PSA. And what we did is we conducted capacity assessment and training needs assessment at the subnational level to identify the most urgent capacity needs related to gender statistics. And after the results of the assessment, we were able to design and conduct 3 training modules on importance of gender statistics in policymaking, data production and management for gender statistics using Microsoft Excel, and data visualization using infographics, engaging the public. And after the training, we had some testimonials from the policymakers. They said that after the training, they were able to use Microsoft Excel in extracting and visualizing the community-based monitoring system, SDG, and gender data. And it also helped them update the local development plans that will be more fit to the needs of their constituents. Another policymaker, Mayor Aida Macalinaw from Samal, said that after the training, they were able to use data visualization to LGU data and relayed results of their data to constituents. And they updated their comprehensive development plans and other compliances. And of course, this also helped them in their different programs. So that's it. And thank you very much for listening.
Josie, thank you very much for those very useful insights. You pointed out to us some of the challenges that policymakers face in the Philippines in using official statistics, and how the statistical literacy program in the Philippines is supporting policymakers to overcome and address some of these challenges. So thank you for those very interesting insights. It is now my pleasure to invite Ms. Altinai Mambetova, co-founder of the School of Data, Kyrgyzstan. The School of Data is a public foundation and a global network aiming to develop and advance data literacy through educational projects and initiatives. And Altinai is a data journalist. She's a trainer as well as a developer of courses on data journalism as well as gender data communications. She's engaged in promoting data-driven initiatives in Central Asia. She will talk to us today about enhancing statistical literacy among journalists and the civil society in particular on Central Asia. So thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours, Altinai.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me well. And today I'm going to share our experience about the challenges we're facing in Central Asia in our region, and on teaching data and statistics to journalists, to universities, and which programs we're implementing in the region for them. So let me start. And when I say we, I'm referring to the School of Data, and it's an NGO working in the field of data initiatives in Central Asia, Eastern Europe. And what we're doing, we're based in Kyrgyzstan, and our mission is to empower communities and expand opportunities to use data, and promoting partnerships between the users of data and producers of data for better ecosystem. And here I want to mention the important word, which is data ecosystem. And we're working with each part of it as the system is really interdependent. And it includes both users and producers, which means we're working with government officials, stats departments, stats committee, civil society, NGOs, journalists, universities, and international organizations as well. So why it's important for civil society and media to use statistics. With all the technology advances, it means that the role of journalists has shifted. And this is the motivation we use to engage more journalists in the field of data. And it's not working in a classical way anymore. And data actually can become a lifesaver for journalists, and more stories are waiting to get uncovered, and more data means that more ways to engage the audience. And for data-driven advocacy campaigns, which have evidence-based approach proven to be like more efficient in general as well. So this is the motivation we use. Of course, it comes with the challenges in the field, and I'm going to mention a few of them in here. And often cases, for instance, in newsroom, challenges in newsrooms, exactly. Often cases, journalists choose journalism because they think that they don't need to engage with tables and math and statistics. by that, and it's really hard to promote using statistics and data literacy in there. But the things are changing in here, and with the development of digital literacy and data literacy, it changes completely. And the other challenge is that newsrooms actually are not agile. So in every newsroom, editors and journalists, they have their own way finding their stories, the classical approach, and it's mostly asking questions from experts and writing a balanced story on that. And other challenges we have include technical challenges, which means that mostly the format of data we received is non-unified. And the overall level of data literacy, which was mentioned by other speakers too, is really low among civil society and public in general. And here I'm talking about our region specifically as well. So what is our approach, how we face these challenges and what we're doing to advance data literacy? And our first intention was to make data a tool accessible by all. So we organized events, we use educational initiatives. Of course, we promote research projects, and we publish media stories and use data journalism. And we produce as a community instruments for civil society, for researchers, and for journalists as well. And I'm going to talk more in details on what we're doing. So we started with community engagement. And it started with monthly meetups, technical meetups, and then it went to public discussions, which engaged government officials, stat committees, and eventually we were able to organize in collaboration with Stat Committee, International Organization, and the government hackathons to produce data-driven stories and to expand data literacy among society. And it led to conferences and other events. And our educational initiatives, they include year-long programs, training programs for journalists, for researchers, for civil society members, and they get really thematic. For instance, data communication, and now we're with the UN Women, we're working on the course modules for universities on gender data communication as well, advanced data analysis, geodata. And we also have mentorship programs for journalists and researchers where we work with them and we produce stories and we make data accessible. And in our trainings, we try to engage different audiences. For instance, we try to encourage the collaboration between journalists, researchers, and civil society, because as I mentioned, this is interdependent data ecosystem. For instance, our publications, our recent publication, it was on the results. We engaged with researchers and journalists. So we made a survey on the results of remote online education in Kyrgyzstan during 2020. And the results of our research were used by the Ministry of Education to plan the next year, in schools. So here you can see the excerpt of this of our research and how we do it. One of our examples was a collaboration with the National Statistics Committee on the time use survey. So what we did is we get the data from the National Statistical Committee on time use survey, and we produced a video which replicated how women and men spend their time So we communicated the results of the time use survey, and it was really efficient because it went viral among the public, and that's how audience in general got to know why this time use survey is important and how to interpret the results of it. And we also working on services to get the data in a machine readable format for journalists and researchers who produce scrapers. We developed them, and we made scrapers available. For instance, we made a dashboard and data available for journalists and researchers. They use this data to produce their data-driven stories on COVID-19. And researchers used our service to predict how, using data, how the pandemic is going to emerge in different ways in Kyrgyzstan. So in conclusion, I want to mention that it's really important to engage civil society and journalists in the planning while producing the data. And it's important to explain how data was produced and what are the results and what are the things that need to be considered while reading the report or while reading the data set. And data literacy, of course, should be included in the program of university. And now we're working to include it in the program of journalists. But it should be available in general for other departments as well. And we're working closely with the universities and with the statistical committee to produce these modules and help teachers to get more of it. So we have the same goal, actually, all of us. And here is my contacts in our website, opendata.kg. You can find me there, and you can approach me if you have any kind of questions on what we're doing in our region. And that's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Altinai, for sharing the impressive work of the School of Data. Altinai basically emphasized the changing role of journalists as well as the civil society and how they need to be prepared for more data-driven advocacy. It is also impressive to see the combination of short, medium, and long-term innovative approaches that the School of Data is rolling out in order to meet these objectives. So thank you very much for sharing these perspectives. Last but not the least, may I invite Ms. Heather Lansdowne, Social Media Manager at the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Heather has a background in social media strategy and management in both public and private sectors. She created the social media strategy for the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which increased the follower base and generated over 10 million views per year. She has also supported the communications campaign for the Australian Marriage Law Postal Survey and the 2016 round of the census. Now, Heather will be presenting to us ABS's actions to drive statistical literacy via social media. So thank you for joining us, Heather, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. So my name is Heather Lansdowne. I'm Social Media Manager at the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or the ABS, as I might say throughout this presentation. So today, I guess I want to talk to you a bit about how we generate statistical literacy for the general public via social media. So I'll talk a little bit about an audit that we conducted in 2018. And we used this audit to increase our impressions on social media by 27%, increase our engagement by 142%, and increase our follower numbers by 30% in just 2 years. So basically in 2018, we kind of went through some of our content. We had a look at the top performing posts and the very bottom performing posts in terms of things like impressions or the views and engagements like likes and comments and things like that. And we took three key things away from that audit. Basically, the first thing was that the posts had to be really informative in order to be popular. Obviously, they had to be interesting and tell the user something they didn't know before. And the second point was the thing that I probably found the most useful, was that the posts had to really put the data into perspective or into a context. So you can see at the bottom of the slide here, these are 3 of the posts that performed really well. And you can see, rather than just presenting like one piece of data, we're actually putting it in context for them. So this is the population of Australia compared to the population of the UK, or this is the number of female engineers we have compared to the amount that we had 20 years ago, or, you know, comparing males and females, things like that. So it really helps people to put something in perspective rather than just providing one number. And lastly, as communications people, we're all very keen on simplicity, and obviously on social media that is even more important than everywhere else because people are scrolling really quickly and you've got to catch their attention really quickly. We also found through our audit that we had a chance to improve on our efficiency and our authoritativeness. Sorry,
Heather, you have not taken the control.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you guys see the slide with the 3 at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. So I'll just move on to the next slide now. So yeah, we made those changes. We basically decided that we would try to kind of incorporate those 3 findings throughout our social media feed, and that we would also create a new style guide to kind of create a much more consistent look and feel. So I think you can see that quite clearly here. Before we had a lot of different colors and styles going on, and then afterwards we have just this nice plain white background. Our hero color is teal, and we actually use that coral pink color to just highlight certain key parts of data that we want to draw the user's attention to. And so, as I mentioned, after this audit, we had a 27% increase in impressions and 142% increase in engagement, which was really great. We've also seen some really good growth in our follower numbers. We grew 13% in 2019, 15% in 2020, and already 12% this year. We're hoping to hit 17% this year, and if we do, our boss is going to buy us pizza. So please do give us a follow. I'll put our channels up at the end. It would mean a lot to me if you would have a follow and see what we're up to. I just thought I'd go through a few examples of some of the posts, as I guess I'm the last speaker, so I'll try and keep it a bit fun and light. So these are some of the posts that we've done recently that have performed really well. So you can see here, we saw that it was Pokemon Day, and we thought, how can we relate this to our statistics? So we looked up the number of people that had downloaded the Pokemon Go app, which was about 1 billion. So we put this in perspective, saying that's about 40 times the population of Australia. And this post did really well. It's the most popular post so far this year. It has about 160,000 impressions on Facebook. So not bad for something so simple and easy. In a similar vein, we did one for the anniversary of the moon landing. So this was a nice chance to use our kind of historical data. So we had a look at the population of Australia on the day in 1969 that we landed on the moon, which was about 12 million. And then we compared that to the population of the moon on that day, which was 2. So that was a bit of a joke. This was our most popular post on Twitter the first year we posted it. It got about 100,000 views, and we continue to post it every single year. So it's really good to kind of build up a bank of that nice evergreen content that you know is going to perform really well every year. This was a bit of a weird one. This year we saw that it was Edgar Allan Poe's birthday, and we decided to try and work our statistics into a poem that was sort of inspired by his poem The Raven, which you might know, there's that recurring line of quoth the raven nevermore, but we changed it to quoth the raven 1 in 4. So we were looking at, 1 in 4 Australians have a university degree, 1 in 4 were born overseas, things like that. This post also did really well. It has about 150,000 impressions on Facebook, so it's just behind that Pokemon one, so it's the second top post this year. People, I think, really enjoyed something a little bit left of field. Similarly, we do have a very nerdy user base. We always love to do something creative for May the 4th, for Star Wars Day. So my colleague Anna actually came up with this idea last year to put Star Wars characters into real life occupations. So Boba Fett is a debt collector and C-3PO is a translator and things like that. And then we put the number of people in those professions in Australia. This post, again, was one of the most popular posts, and we posted it again this year, and it did really well as well. And in a similar vein, this is from my colleague Anna as well, who loves The Hobbit. We saw that it was Hobbit Day, and I think this is a nice example of what I was saying before, is that it's just good to keep things really simple, interesting, and to put things in perspective. So you can see here, we compared the height of a hobbit to the height of an average man and woman in Australia that we have from our health data. And this was really great to create engagement of people tagging their friends that were either really tall or really short, and creating a lot of good conversation around that. end here, we just have quite a cute little poem for Love Note Day, bit of a statistical joke for you. Roses are red, grass is green, and you're 3 standard deviations above the mean. So I think it's nice as well to sometimes throw in a post that doesn't always have to have data in there, but it is related to statistics and it's kind of keeping along the theme of our account. We saw a lot of really nice comments on this one as well. You can see some of them there. No one has ever said anything more beautiful than this. This is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Someone even said they said something similar in their wedding vows. So this was really nice to kind of create that kind of statistical joke, I guess, within our community. And yeah, I thought I'd just share a little bit of the feedback that we get on those, I guess, fun popular culture posts. It's really nice to see people kind of enjoying that content and saying it's their favorite account or they look forward to seeing our content. We also sometimes get, especially on those fun kind of pop culture posts, we also get a lot of comments that people would kind of, that looks like a really fun place to work, or people would love to come work with us. So we actually can use our social media as a bit of a recruitment tool because we obviously want to get the best and brightest in to work with us as well. And I think that's great to kind of let our personality shine through our account a little bit as well. And this is our favorite comment of all time. Very simple, just says, love stats, absolutely fiending for some more stats. So my colleague Anna and I, if we get up in the morning and we're feeling a little bit down or a little bit unmotivated, we just think about this person and how much they're looking forward to seeing some creative stats on social media. And we give our best shot, I guess, at creating something interesting for them. So yeah, I'll keep it short. That's it for me today, but please do give us a follow, as I mentioned, on one of those channels at ABS Stats everywhere or Australian Bureau of Statistics on LinkedIn. And that's my LinkedIn there, just in case you have any questions after the presentation. But thank you so much.
Heather, thank you so much for sharing those very, very interesting and innovative case studies. I'm sure the audience are, our participants are extremely inspired with this. And thanks also for emphasizing the importance of informative, contextual, and simple data-driven messages when using social media. So thank you again. That brings us to the end of all our presentations for today. And we move into the Q&A now, but we're really running out of time. So it looks like I might have time just to take one question. And we really apologize. And for the other questions that have come in, we may need to get back to you later after the session. So the one question that I would like to bring up for discussion today is, given the topic of this Stats Café, that is enhancing data and statistical literacy for policy action, how can a long-term literacy program be integrated in national legislation and policies? Now, some of our speakers have already addressed this question in their presentations. For instance, we heard about the literacy program in Sri Lanka, where it was integrated in the National Institute of Education. We've heard about how Sri Lanka is taking action to enhance literacy through the school and university curriculum. But there are other possibilities on how a long-term literacy program can be integrated in national legislation and policies. So I wonder if I can invite maybe Walter and TK to share some reflections with us to start with, and maybe any of the other panelists who might want to add.
Yes, maybe a very short comment. I think the precondition, which is very, very important, is that the National Statistical Institutes receive a kind of mandate combined with budget and capacities. Because after budget cuts over the last years in many, many countries, there is no time and no possibility to invest in a sufficient way in this area. And I think this should be made clear in the next budget negotiations, and whenever the mandate, the legal mandate and the organizational mandate of a statistical institution is under discussion, one should put emphasis on this area, that this belongs to the core responsibilities of a statistical institute.
Thank you, Walter. Would TK or any of the other panelists want to add?
Yeah, I can only echo what Walter just said. So you can have a lot of legislation in place. The statistical office can have a certain role, but additionally, if you don't have the budget to get the right people in your office and to spend on it, then it still wouldn't work. So, and one way of countering that is also that you have to realize that rather than having individual activities, that that everything, your whole framework, everything, your overall framework, everything you do in your office, that they are mutually strengthened activities and integrated approaches, so that the overall impact is larger than the individual ones. So having a budget, but also making sure that your whole framework within your office is strengthening each other, so that the impact of every dollar you spend is bigger, as large as possible. But definitely legislation, having the position, fundamental principles of official statistics, for example, they were adopted by the General Assembly, so by all governments of all countries, which includes also that the officers have the right to correct misinformation. So it goes even further than just the statistical literacy. So it's important that people realize that officers have that right, have it put into their legislation, but also that they get the accompanying budget to do all these activities and to educate the publication and make all your efforts within your office all interrelated, so the impact is bigger for every dollar you have. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Thanks, both Walter and TK. So you basically highlighted the importance of having a mandate and including statistical literacy as an integral part of the budget planning in National Statistical Institute, so that this can systematically be taken up, because if we don't have the budget, then there is no way to actually plan for these efforts. Would any of the other panelists want to add any further insights to this question?
May I add, Sharita? Yeah, okay. In the Philippines, we had a legislation which we call the community-based monitoring system. And actually, the government is providing budget, but it is prioritizing the 4th, 5th, and 6th cities and municipalities, the poorer ones, okay? And they will be given trainings on data collection, data processing, and data analysis every 3 years that will be implemented. So that's already a Republic Act.
Thank you again, Josie. So again, you've also highlighted the importance of having a mandate in place to move this forward, to move this agenda forward. So I'm afraid we have really run out of time now. The discussions are extremely interesting. We could have actually gone on for perhaps another hour or so. But if there is interest in this topic, we'd be happy to organize follow-up cafes on related topics or on this topic again. So thanks to all our panelists for the moment, and I would like to give the floor to Ms. Petra Namies, the Chief of the Population and Social Statistics section here at ESCAP, to give us a quick summary and wrap up of the session. So Petra, over to you.
Thanks, Sharita. And it's a bit of a daunting task when we're past time, to try to wrap this up very quickly, given the richness of the presentations. Since people will probably be leaving, a quick reminder, if you could kindly complete the evaluation survey, the link to which will be on the screen and also in the chat. We received a question ahead of time which resonated with all of us, and that was that statistical literacy is a catchphrase that has a long history in the official statistics community. What's new in this discussion? And this question will drive my wrap-up remarks. It was some 150 years ago that the British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli said there are 3 kinds of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so we can see that even then, 150 years ago, statistics have found themselves in trouble due to misunderstanding or mistrust, driven in no small part by a lack of statistical understanding. So clearly we've been dealing with this problem for a long time. So what's new in this discussion? First, what struck me from the presentations is how complex the data ecosystem has become. Data science presents both a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for improving literacy by leveraging that same flexibility and innovation which has driven so much of the recent work, even while recognizing the challenges of the increasing complexity. And since data science now permeates so much of our lives, with so much data available and issues around its use, data literacy is becoming more and more important, as well as a general life skill. Second, within the official statistics community, there seems to be much more awareness of the need for strategic communications to ensure that the statistics produced are being used. I think traditionally there's been more of an attitude of build it and they will come, with statistical products. And there's clearly something around making sure that the statistics produced are of high quality and fit for purpose if we want them to be used as described by the Philippines. However, clearly, while necessary, this is not sufficient. Now, with all the challenges around fake news and false information, there seems to be more of a realization that we also have a responsibility around how the statistics are disseminated and used. And I like the emphasis from both Tika and Walter that statistical literacy includes broader aspects such as ethics or trusteeship, as they're also key components of literacy. What's also new seems to be the awareness of the diversity of users. Traditionally, the focus has been on policymakers and government. And this is important, of course, we want that to be used in policies, and they're a key client, but I particularly like the case of Sri Lanka, which involved getting some critical appraisal skills while potential users are young, a skill which will do them well throughout life, not just for official statistics. And really, that's how we're going to get the cultural change referred to by Walter in a really sustainable way. And also the case of Central Asia and the training for journalists and civil society, another constituent of data users with a particular interest in communicating data clearly, who we can use as well. Of course, the use of social media is key for disseminating information. And as mentioned, we're seeing how important this is in the COVID-19 pandemic. Perhaps something Disraeli didn't think about when he was making his comments, but remarkably prescient in the current circumstances. Just to end, I was actually listening to the opening of the World Data Forum last night, and a young person, a law student, he made the point that when a good lawyer is in court, they will use technical legal jargon, and that's fine, of course. But when they're speaking with their clients, they've got to translate those legal terms into everyday language. And the same is true for all of us. And I think we can achieve that by working with journalists and through social media and people with expertise in that area. So to quote another catchphrase, while we need to work on improving critical appraisal skills among all stakeholders and potential users, when we communicate, we also clearly need to be driven by the idiom, keep it simple, stupid, while also capturing the nuance, assumptions, uncertainty, and more. I'm not sure we've solved this challenge in today's session, but there's clearly lots of exciting creative ideas for the way forward that we've seen presented here, and I look forward to working more together on this issue. So all that remains is for me to thank all of today's excellent speakers, the moderators, and all the participants. Your generous contributions are really what makes these Stats Cafés so successful. A quick reminder again about the evaluation survey. If you could kindly fill it in, that'd be much appreciated. And I'd also like to thank all the ESCAP staff who work so hard to put these Stats Cafés together. And with that, I'll close today's cafe. Thank you all very much and goodbye.
Thank you very much.